And now, we make it to a crucial part of biblical time prophecy, a crucial part of history. The little horn has now been identified as the papacy. It seems that with the succession of these prophetic visions, God unveils more and more in detail each time prophetic vision is presented. This brings us to the island of Patmos. This brings us to John and a revelation. The book of Revelation is a very, very interesting book of the Bible. Now, this is a book that I've read over and over again for the last 8 years of my life. This book was written by John the Revelator, and in this book he describes the visions he had seen while being visited by the Lord at the island of Patmos in his exile. When I was reading this book, I focused particularly on the scary parts because those were the things that, as a young man, interested me most about the Bible. In Revelation 13, John saw a vision of a beast that rises out of the sea. This beast had 7 heads and 10 horns, and John says that all the world wondered after this particular beast. After this beast that rises out of the sea, John saw another beast that rises out of the earth. This beast had 2 horns like a lamb and spake like a dragon. Now, who are these beasts and what do they represent? I believe that these prophecies give us insight and, most importantly, warnings about events soon to take place in the near future. Revelation 13 goes on to say that these beasts will cause people to have a mark, and whoever is not found with the mark cannot buy or sell and eventually will be killed. So the more we know, the better we are able to prepare for this coming crisis. The list of descriptions given to describe these 2 beasts of Revelation 13 are quite similar to the descriptions given to describe the beasts of Daniel 7. But in order to figure out who or what these beasts represent, we must first again learn more keys to unlock the meaning of the symbols that give us the clues which reveal the identity of these beasts. Let's take a look at the keys. What is a beast a symbol of in Bible prophecy? We now know from Daniel 7 that a beast is a symbol for a political power, a kingdom, a nation, or a superpower. What is the sea or waters a symbol of in Bible prophecy? Revelation 13 verse 1 says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy." Now, if you go over to Revelation 17 and verse 3, John, being carried away in the spirit, says, "I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of the names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns." Now, this is the same beast. And now John says that a woman is sitting on top of the beast that rises out of the sea. In Revelation 17 and verse 15, an angel tells John, "The waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues." So the waters or the sea in prophecy is a symbol for people or a densely populated area. What is a horn a symbol of in Bible prophecy? Now, we already know that a horn is a symbol for a king, a kingdom, or power. What is the Bible definition of blasphemy? We've also learned from the study before this the 2 Bible definitions of blasphemy. Bible definition number 1, when a man claims to be God on earth, that is blasphemy. Bible definition number 2, when a man claims to have the power to forgive sin, that is also blasphemy. Revelation 13 says about the first beast that he will continue 42 months. Now remember, 42 months or 42 months is the same as time, times, and the dividing of time, which is 3.5 years. Again, in the Hebrew calendar, there's only 30 days per month. 42 months 30 days each month, that's 1260 days, but we also already know that a day in Bible prophecy equals to a literal year. So that 42-month prophetic period is actually 1260 literal years. What is a dragon a symbol of in Bible prophecy? Revelation 12 and verse 9 says, "And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan." So in the primary sense, the dragon is the devil, but there is a secondary application. Revelation 12 starting in verse 4, talking about the dragon, says, "His tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne." First of all, what is a dragon? A dragon is a beast. And remember, a beast in Bible prophecy is a symbol for a kingdom. Now, who is the man-child who is caught up unto God and to his throne? That would be Jesus Christ. So, verse 4 of Revelation 12 says that this dragon, this beast, or this kingdom wanted to devour the man-child, which was Jesus Christ, or kill Jesus Christ as soon as he was born. Who was the king from the kingdom that tried to kill Jesus as soon as he was born? In Matthew 2, it was King Herod of pagan Rome that ordered to kill all of the sons of Bethlehem under 2 years old in hopes that Jesus would be one of those that were killed. He felt threatened by Jesus because he heard the prophecy that one day this child would take hold of rulership. So in a secondary sense, the dragon is also pagan Rome. Again, the dragon in the primary sense is Satan, and in the secondary sense, pagan Rome. Now, what is a sword a symbol of in the Bible? Ephesians 6 and verse 17. "And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God." So in the primary sense, the sword is the word of God, or the Bible. Romans 13 verses 1 through 4. "Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers," talking about the civil government, the civil power. "For there is no power but of God, the powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain." So, the sword in the primary sense is a symbol for the Bible, and in the secondary sense is a symbol for the civil power. Now, what is an image in the Bible? In Genesis 1 verse 26, "And God said, Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." Exodus 20 and verse 4, "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth." So in the Bible, an image of something is a likeness of something. Now, what is the Bible definition of worship? The word for worship in Hebrew is the word shaka, and in Greek it is the word proskuneo. These two words mean to bow down, to crouch, to revere, to prostrate to, or submit to someone or something. So the Bible definition of worship is to bow down and prostrate oneself in submission and obedience to someone or something, usually in a spiritual or religious sense. So again, here are the keys. A beast is a symbol for a superpower. The sea or the waters is a symbol for peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. In other words, a densely populated area. A horn is a symbol for a king, kingdom, or power. The two Bible definitions of blasphemy: number one, when a man claims to be God on earth, that is blasphemy. And number two, when a man claims to have the power to forgive sin, that is also blasphemy. The 42-month period is 1260 days in prophecy, which is 1260 literal years. The dragon in the primary sense is Satan, and in the secondary sense is pagan Rome. The sword in the primary sense is the Bible, and in the secondary sense is the civil power. An image in the Bible is a likeness for something, and to worship means to bow down and prostrate oneself in submission and obedience to someone or something, usually in a spiritual or religious sense. So, now that we know the keys, we're gonna read Revelation 13 starting from verse 1. We're gonna apply these keys and we will see that the first beast of Revelation 13 have very similar descriptions to that of another entity that was prophesied in one of the visions from Daniel 7. I believe that just reading Revelation 13 in verse 1, when we apply these keys, you guys will have a clear understanding who this entity is. Revelation 13, starting from verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Now let's apply the keys. So John saw a beast or a superpower rise up out of the sea or a densely populated area, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy, which means this superpower is going to claim to be God on earth, and he's going to claim to have the power to forgive sin. This should already give you a clear indication of who this entity might be. It is a superpower that comes out of a densely populated area, and he will claim to be God on earth, and he will claim to have the power to forgive sin. Very, very familiar. Verse number 2. And this beast, or this superpower, which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion, and the dragon, or Satan, or pagan Rome, gave him his power and his seat and great authority. So we have a superpower that comes out of a densely populated area. He will claim to be God on earth. He will claim to have the power to forgive sin, and pagan Rome gave him his power and seat and great authority. Who could that be? Let's keep going. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast, and they worshipped the dragon, or obeyed pagan Rome, which gave power unto the beast, or this superpower, and they worshipped the beast, or they obeyed this superpower, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? So now we have a superpower that comes out of a densely populated area, who will claim to be God on earth and claim to have the power to forgive sin, and pagan Rome gave him his power, his seat, and great authority. And they worship the beast, saying, who is able to make war with the beast? They worship the beast, that is a religious system, and who is able to make war with the beast, that is a political system. It is a union of church and state. Let's keep going. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. So the superpower is a persecuting power. Again, he will blaspheme God, he will claim to be God on earth, and he will claim to have the power to forgive sin, and he will continue 42 months. That is 1260 days in prophecy, 1260 literal years. Now, what is the only entity in the world that fit these descriptions? I'm sure we all know who John was talking about now. Let's keep going. Verse 8, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Again, it's going to be a religious system. They worshipped the beast. I'm positive that most of you already know what entity John was describing in this prophecy here. Who is the beast? It is again none other than the papacy. The papacy is the only superpower that fits all of these descriptions perfectly. The papacy is a superpower that rises out of a densely populated area who claims to be God on earth and claims to have the power to forgive sin. And we already know that pagan Rome gave the papacy its power, its seat, and great authority. The papacy is a religious system as well as a political system. It is a union of church and state. The papacy blasphemes God. The papacy is the only entity in the world that ruled for exactly 1260 years. And during those 1260 years, the papacy made war with the saints and killed the saints during a time called the Dark Ages. So this prophecy is the same as the prophecies before. In Daniel 2, God gave us a timeline, the basis of this prophecy. In Daniel 7, God gave us the same prophecy but more detail. And now in Revelation 13, God gives us the same prophecy and even more detail. Revelation 13, starting from verse 9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. So the Bible is saying that he that leadeth into captivity, he himself shall go into captivity. And he that killeth with the sword, the Bible and the civil power, he himself must be killed with the same exact thing, the Bible and the civil power. Now remember, the papacy ruled from 538 AD all the way to 1798 AD, which is exactly 1260 years. During those times, people used the Bible and protested against the papacy, exposing the papacy using the Bible, the sword, that the papacy was the little horn or the Antichrist of Scripture. And so many Christians back then protested against the papacy. This was the birth of Protestantism. What happened in 1798 AD? Napoleon was sick and tired of taking orders from the Pope and from the papacy, and so he sent General Berthier to go and arrest the Pope and claim Rome. The Pope then, who led people into captivity, he himself was led into captivity. So the papacy was killed with the sword, which was the Bible, and later died by the civil power in exile. He that leadeth into captivity, he himself must be led into captivity. He that killeth with the sword, he himself must be killed with the sword. The beast received his deadly wound. Now, of course, the papacy remained, but the power was taken away from the papacy. And so while the papacy was on its way down, John sees another beast that comes out of the earth. Revelation 13 verse 11, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Now, who is this new beast that comes out of the earth? Let's make a list of the descriptions the Bible gives us about this second beast of Revelation 13. Number 1, it is a beast, so that means it is a superpower. Number 2, this superpower rises up right when the papacy was on its way down, which is in the year 1798. So this superpower will rise up around late 1700s. Number 3, notice that prophecy goes from east to west. In Daniel 2 and Daniel 7, that first kingdom was Babylon. The second kingdom was Medo-Persia, which is west of Babylon. The third kingdom was Greece, which is west of Persia. And the last kingdom was Rome, which is west of Greece. Rome then gave its seat and authority to the papacy. Where then will this lamb-like beast, this superpower, rise up out of? If we follow the movement of prophecy, it should rise up in the western hemisphere and not the eastern hemisphere, in the new world and not the old world. So characteristic number 3, this superpower will rise up in the western hemisphere, in the new world and not the old world. Number 4, it will come up out of the earth, which is the opposite of the sea. The sea is full of water, and remember, water in Bible prophecy is a symbol for peoples, nations, and kindreds and tongues, or a densely populated area. If the earth is the opposite of a sea, then the earth must be a sparsely populated area. Number 5, it will be a lamb-like beast. Now remember, the lamb is Christ, so it is a superpower with Christian values. It is a Christian nation with Christian principles. Now, what are the 2 horns? Remember, a horn in Bible prophecy is a symbol for kings or kingdoms or powers, or you can say 2 principles. The first beast had 10 horns and 10 crowns, which indicates that these 10 horns or 10 kingdoms had 10 kings. This lamb-like beast has 2 horns, no crowns. So it is a Christ-like nation with 2 Christ-like principles. Now, what are the 2 principles of Christ? In Matthew 22, verses 36 through 40, Jesus was being asked, which is the greatest commandment? Jesus said, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and all thy soul and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets." So the 2 principles of Christ is love God and love your neighbors. This is why God specifically wrote the 10 commandments on 2 tables of stone. Not 1, not 3. 2 tables of stone for a very specific reason. The first table, which contains the first 4 commandments, describes our duty towards God, governed strictly by a religious power. This is a spiritual kingdom. The second table, which contains the last 6 commandments, describes our duty towards man, our neighbors, governed strictly by a civil power. This is the civil kingdom. Now, these 2 principles were even laid out by Jesus Christ himself in Mark 12. A group of people came to ask Jesus, "Master, we know that thou art true and carest for no man. For thou regardest not the person of men, but teachest the way of God in truth. Is it lawful to give tribute to Caesar or not? Shall we give or shall we not give?" But he, knowing their hypocrisy, said unto them, "Why tempt ye me? Bring me a penny, may I see it? And they brought it. And he saith unto them, Whose is the image and superscription? And they said unto him, Caesar's. And Jesus answering said unto them, Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." So in context, God controls the religious power or the spiritual kingdom, and Caesar, today we call it the government, controls the civil power or civil kingdom. So the 2 principles are church and state and the separation thereof. This lamb-like beast is a Christian nation acknowledging the separation of 2 powers, church and state. Let's do a recap of the descriptions given to us about this second beast. Number 1, it will be a beast or a superpower. Number 2, it will come up around late 1700s. Number 3, it will come up in the Western Hemisphere in the New World and not the Old World. Number 4, it will come up in a sparsely populated area. And number 5, it will be a Christian nation that acknowledges the two principles of Christ, church principles and state principles, and the separation thereof. What is the only Christian-based superpower that rises up in the late 1700s in a sparsely populated area in the Western Hemisphere who acknowledges church and state and the separation thereof? It is none other than the United States of America. Is America a superpower? The United States of America is actually the most influential superpower in the world today since the papacy. Did it come up in the late 1700s? 1776 was the Declaration of Independence. 1783 was the end of the Revolutionary War against Great Britain. 1787, the U.S. Constitution was framed. 1789, the U.S. Constitution was ratified. 1789 to 1797, George Washington served as our first president. So while the papacy was going down in 1798, the United States was quietly establishing its power and dominance. Number 3. Did the United States of America come up in the Western Hemisphere? It is no secret that the United States of America came up in the New World in the Western Hemisphere. Even our currency states that we are established in the New World, and the United States even calls this the New World Order. Number 4, did the United States come up in a sparsely populated area? When America was first discovered, this continent was barely populated. And number 5, does the United States of America acknowledge church and state and the separation thereof? We have a constitution actually protecting the separation of church and state. The reason why our founding fathers came to America was because they were trying to detach themselves from the King of Britain and also from a king that runs both church and state, which is the Pope. This is the reason why we came up as a republic and a Protestant nation. Republicanism is a kingdom without a king, and Protestantism is a church without a pope. The United States of America is the only entity in the world that fit the descriptions of this second beast of Revelation 13. And John says that the second beast, the United States of America, will begin to speak as a dragon.